This video is an audio recording of our reading group reading and discussing on the correct handling of contradictions among the people, Chapter 2, the question of eliminating counter-revolutionaries. Our reading groups are open to the public and we encourage discussion of any ideas people bring to the table, but this also means some of the ideas expressed in this discussion might not reflect the actual views of our party on any level. Some people that aren't familiar with communism outside of what Western media tells us might see the title of this chapter and think we're about to discuss throwing everyone that says something we don't like into a gulag and throwing away the key, or something like that. But I encourage you to stick around and hear what Mao actually says. It might surprise you. Or at least it might if you haven't watched our video reading and discussing Chapter 1 yet. Go watch our video on Chapter 1 if you haven't yet. I know the longer length might be intimidating, but I guarantee you, it is well worth the watch. With all that out of the way, we hope you enjoy this reading and discussion of On the Correct Handling of Contradictions Among the People, Chapter 2, The Question of Eliminating Counter-Revolutionaries. So welcome to our reading group covering Section 2 of Mao's On the Correct Handling of Contradictions Among the People. This chapter is titled The Question of Eliminating Counter-Revolutionaries. Do we have a volunteer to read the first couple paragraphs?
I can do a couple.
All right.
The elimination of counter-revolutionaries is a struggle of opposites as between ourselves and the enemy. Among the people, there are some who see this question in a somewhat different light. Two kinds of people hold views differing from ours. Those with a right deviation in their thinking make no distinction between ourselves and the enemy, and take the enemy for our own people. They regard as friends the very persons whom the masses regard as enemies. Those with a left deviation in their thinking magnify contradictions between ourselves and the enemy to such an extent that they take certain contradictions among the people for contradictions with the enemy, and regard as counter-revolutionaries persons who are actually not. Both these views are wrong. Neither makes possible the correctly handling of the problem of eliminating counter-revolutionaries or a correct assessment of this work. To form a correct evaluation of our work in eliminating counter-revolutionaries, let us see what repercussions the Hungarian incident has had in China. After its occurrence, there was some unrest among a section of our intellectuals, but there were no squalls. Why? One reason, it must be said, was our success in eliminating counter-revolutionaries fairly thoroughly. Of course, the consolidation of our state is not primarily to the elimination of counter-revolutionaries. It is due primarily to the fact that we have a communist party and a liberation army, both tempered in decades of revolutionary struggle, and a working people likewise so tempered. Our party and our armed forces are rooted in the masses, have been tempered in the flames of a protracted revolution, and have the capacity to fight. Our People's Republic was not built overnight, but developed step by step out of the revolutionary base areas. A number of democratic personages have also been tempered in the struggle in varying degrees, and they have gone through troubled times together with us. Some intellectuals were tempered in the struggles against imperialism and reaction. Since liberation, many have gone through a process of ideological remolding, aimed at enabling them to distinguish clearly between ourselves and the enemy. In addition, the consolidation of our state is due to the fact that our economic measures are basically sound, that the people's life is secure and steadily improving, that our policies towards the national bourgeoisie and other classes are correct, and so on. Nevertheless, our success in eliminating counter-revolutionaries is undoubtedly an important reason for the consolidation of our state. For all these reasons, with few exceptions, our college students are patriotic and support socialism and did not give way to unrest during the Hungarian incident, even though many of them come from families of non-working people. The same was true of the national bourgeoisie, to say nothing of the basic masses, the workers and peasants. After liberation, we rooted out a number of counter-revolutionaries. Some were sentenced to death for major crimes. This was absolutely necessary. It was the demand of the masses, and it was done to free them from long years of oppression by the counter-revolutionaries and all kinds of local tyrants. In other words, to liberate the productive forces. If we had not done so, the masses would not have been able to lift their heads. Since 1956, however, there has been a radical change in the situation in the country as a whole. The bulk of the counter-revolutionaries have been cleared out. Our basic task has changed from unfettering the productive forces to protecting and expanding them in the context of the new relations of production. Because of failure to understand that our present policy fits the present situation, and our past policy fitted the past situation, some people want to make use of the present policy to reverse past decisions and to negate the tremendous success we achieved in eliminating counter-revolutionaries. This is completely wrong, and the masses will not permit it. In our work of eliminating counter-revolutionaries, successes were the main thing, but there were also mistakes. In some cases, there were excesses, and in others, counter-revolutionaries slipped through our net. Our policy is counter-revolutionaries must be eliminated wherever found. Mistakes must be corrected whenever discovered. A line in the work of eliminating counter-revolutionaries is the mass line. Of course, even with the mass line, mistakes may still occur, but they'll be fewer and easier to correct. Masses gain experience through struggle. From the things done correctly, they gain the experience of how things are done correctly. From the mistakes they made, they gain experience of how mistakes are made. And I'll pass the buck now.
All right.
I can continue.
Go for it.
Wherever mistakes have been discovered in the work of eliminating counter-revolutionaries, steps have been or are being taken to correct them. Those not yet discovered will be corrected as soon as they come to light. Exoneration or rehabilitation should be made known as widely as were the original wrong decisions. I have proposed that a comprehensive review of the work of eliminating counter-revolutionaries be made this year or next to sum up experience, promote justice, and counter unjust attacks. Nationally, this review should be in the charge of the standing committees of the National People's Congress and of the National Committee of the Political Consultative Conference, and locally, in the charge of the People's Councils and the committees of the Political Consultative Conference in the provinces and municipalities. In this review, we must help the large numbers of cadres and activists involved in the work and not pour cold water on them. It would not be right to dampen their spirits. Nonetheless, wrongs must be righted when discovered. This must be the attitude of all the public security organs, the procurator's offices and the judicial departments, prisons and agencies charged with the reform of criminals through labor. We hope that wherever possible, members of the Standing Committee of the National People's Congress, members of the National Committee of the Political Consultative Conference, and people's deputies will take part in this review. This will be of help in perfecting our legal system and in dealing correctly with counter-revolutionaries and other criminals.
All right, pause right there. Why must we be careful and diligent about who we consider counter-revolutionaries?
You know, the truth matters. Like, it really matters who actually is a counter-revolutionary, both in the sense of it can be harmful to paint with too broad of a brush, and then you end up making too many mistakes. And if those mistakes do not go corrected, whether those are through policies or releasing people from, jail or whatever the tactics being used against the counter-revolutionaries are. If too many mistakes are made, that will start to wear away at the cohesion within the people.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, it lends fuel to the criticisms of the counter-revolutionaries that uh, the people, the people state, the revolutions or the revolutionaries are, being too savage or being too cruel or wanton or whatever it is. So being careful and precise both preserves the integrity of the revolution, uh, uh, protects it from unjust criticism, and uh, allows for the truth of the situation to kind of take primacy.
Mm-hmm. Anything else? And what I had here was being overtly cautious about considering some to be counter-revolutionaries can result in considering some allies, when in fact they will betray the people's movement and stab us in the back. It is the most basic form of opportunism. It also betrays the people when we align ourselves with those the people understand to be their enemies. Being overly zealous and considering some to be counter-revolutionaries can result in wrongfully declaring some of the people to be the enemy. This too alienates us from the people. When mistakes are made, it must be rectified, and the declaration of the mistakes must be as loud as the original wrongful condemnation. The key to ensuring we are neither overly zealous nor overly cautious is to always maintain the mass line, whose work serves to improve the conditions of the masses of the people, whose work actively harms the progress of improving the conditions of the masses of the people. Anything people want to add? All right. We'll move on to finish this chapter. One paragraph left. I can go ahead and read that. The present situation with regard to counter-revolutionaries can be described in these words. There are still counter-revolutionaries, but not many. In the first place, there are still counter-revolutionaries. Some people say that there aren't any more left, and all is well, and that we can therefore lay our heads on our pillows and just drop off to sleep. But this is not the way things are. The fact is, there still are counter-revolutionaries. Of course, that is not to say that you'll find them everywhere and in every organization. And we must continue to fight them. It must be understood that the hidden counter-revolutionaries still at large will not take things lying down, but will seize every opportunity to make trouble. The US imperialists and the Chiang Kai-shek clique are constantly sending in secret agents to carry on disruptive activities. Even after all the existing counter-revolutionaries have been combed out, new ones are likely to emerge. If we drop our guard, we shall be badly fooled and shall suffer severely. Counter-revolutionaries must be rooted out with a firm hand wherever they are found, making trouble. But taking the country as a whole, there are certainly not many counter-revolutionaries. It would be wrong to say that there are still large numbers of counter-revolutionaries in China. Acceptance of that view would likewise result in a mess. So, final question here. What should be done with counter-revolutionaries once the democratic dictatorship of the proletariat is established? How might this be applicable to our current situation before we have state power? We can start with what should be done with counter-revolutionaries once the democratic dictatorship of the proletariat is established.
I don't know. I feel like it would depend. It depends on how the extent to which they are counter-revolutionary.
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely.
Yeah, I mean they shouldn't be, coddled and uh, deferred to. The line between, the counter-revolutionaries, the bourgeoisie, the landowners, the imperialists, and the proletarian, the peasantry, the oppressed nationalities. That line needs to be very, very firmly held and maintained and highlighted and put in the forefront. at all times.
Mm-hmm.
But what to do with them, I think, like Louis said, I mean, if you're talking about on a case by case basis, I mean, it depends. It's on a case by case basis. Like, what is the best
Yeah.
way? What is? I think you need to strike a balance between um, making sure that they do not harm the people, while also not being overly zealous in the in the prosecution of the counter-revolutionaries. Like, don't just go around shooting everyone just for the sake of shooting everyone. And like the whole, if you have a person, you have a problem. If you don't have a person, you don't have a problem. Like, that's obviously a horrible anti-revolution or counter-revolutionary sentiment. So you shouldn't do that. But at the same time, like, if someone's trying to lead an army back into the country to take, to kick out the workers, the people's government, and then the leader winds up somehow, in your being arrested and is in your can't even think of the word. You have that person. I mean, should you execute them? Like, probably, because if they get out, I mean, look what they just did. Like, how bad is it going to be if you let them go? And like, these are very serious questions that need to be handled on a case by case basis. I don't think there's a one size fits all, other than maintaining the line between the two camps so that there's as little confusion as possible.
Mm-hmm. In my answer, I have two different methods for dealing with this in two general situations. So, I said that some must be done away with by some means for the sake of the masses themselves, those whose mere existence is a reminder of the chains that bound the masses and will continue to keep the masses in psychological chains until it is publicized that their tyranny will never reach the masses again. What done away with means will depend on the current conditions and abilities of the state at the time. All others should merely be subjected to rehabilitation with the goal of returning them to being in line with the people. They should be educated to be able to clearly distinguish between ourselves and the enemy. Once their rehabilitation is complete, their rehabilitation should be made known as widely as the initial condemnation. So how is this applicable to our current situation before we have state power?
So the question is how to deal with counter-revolutionaries before one has state power?
Kind of. Just how is just all the lessons that are expressed throughout this chapter applicable to our current situation?
Okay. I mean, so like in our current situation, so it wouldn't be counter-revolutionaries because there's been no revolution. So it would be
I mean, there could be counter-revolutionaries in the sense that there are people that work against,
the future revolution.
right.
Yeah. So, okay. So just, I mean, generally speaking, like class enemies kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing.
Reactionaries.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, technically you can still do a lot of these things. And certainly in that first bullet point, that's, a method. Um,
Editing Jade here. I just want to be super clear. This was a joke. In reality, political violence only serves to harm the masses, and individual mouthpieces for bourgeois oppression will always be replaced with a new mouthpiece, achieving worse than nothing. We understand people can be scared and frustrated with the attacks on the working class, and especially the marginalized portions of the working class, but the solution is not individualist, adventurist, lone wolf, knee-jerk reactions. The solution is collective action. Get organized. Join a party or organization active in your area. Build up and educate your community on how to better resist fascist attacks. I'll leave some links in the description with some more info on this topic, but feel free to reach out to us with any other questions. Now back to the discussion.
yeah. I mean, technically you could try and re-educate them too, but without some means to monopoly on violence, that's going to be a little bit tougher to get them to sit and listen. I don't know. Who else got an idea?
I mean, I kind of think the history of pre-revolutionary struggle, um, or I guess revolutionary struggle before the actual revolution, demonstrates that individual acts of doing away with some people who are harmful to the masses uh, doesn't really work. I mean, sometimes you can like rock the boat enough that maybe a couple of things change for the better, but if you're not, if you're lashing out from a place of relative weakness to the ruling classes, they're just going to crack down harder. This happens time and again, and it is happening now.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. FBI, you know what I'm talking about. So I mean, like, well, yes, you can do that. I think the question is it counterproductive to do that? And I would argue, uh, almost always yes. Now, once state power is achieved, or um, in a direct equal struggle for state power, like in the case of a civil war or something like that, that calculus probably changes, but in terms of how this relates to our situation now, um, I kind of I kind of look at it as like I think the second bullet point is maybe a little bit more relevant and more uh, helpful here. That we've all got both liberal and conservative people in our lives that you just try to have the conversations with, and I know that sometimes that's not very helpful, and I know that that can sometimes be damaging to your mental and emotional health in the moment, and I'm not saying we should do that, but something along the lines of just trying to engage in good faith conversations with these, quote unquote, counter revolutionaries or these potential reactionaries. Um, like of, I'm kind of thinking about the movie The Matrix, how when they're taking Neo, like they're teaching Neo after they've taken him out of the Matrix about the nature of the Matrix, and they explain to him, look, if you're still plugged into the Matrix, you are still potentially an enemy, but you're also potentially an ally because if we can free you from that, then we that's one less person that we have to worry about. And so it's like when the person gets taken over by the agent, well, I'm sorry, now you've been taken over by the agent, like I have to kill you to defend myself. But before that, from an organizational standpoint, they are trying to, while simultaneously take down the matrix, find the people within it that they can extract from the system and bring over to their side. So I don't know, something like that. Maybe I'm getting too off topic, and I'll stop now. But that's kind of like where my thoughts are on that.
Mm-hmm, that's good. Should I reveal my answers that I have?
Yes, tell us what the right answer is.
I mean, it's not the right answer, but what I came up with is that before state power, maintaining the mass line is key both to ensuring that we do not succumb to opportunism by working with or for the enemies of the people. as well as ensuring we are constantly working for the sake of the masses of the people, even those that have merely been enraptured by the demagogy of the enemies of the people, but are still part of the people themselves, being fucked over by this very same people that they believe in so much. Only those counter-revolutionaries that actively keep the masses of people in chains should be dismissed out of hand. For those merely enraptured by them and their rhetoric, we must employ the tactic of re-education and rehabilitation when possible. Of course, this is not possible when they are actively harming the people or any subsection of the people, and they must first be stopped before we can work on rehabilitation.
One thing that came to my mind when we were reading that last paragraph or the last two paragraphs or whatever of the original text,
Mhm.
The trials of the Batista officers that took place in like 60 and 61, I think it was, in Cuba, and how a lot of reactionaries and counter-revolutionaries will point to the execution of these officers as, evidence that they were bloodthirsty and that Fidel and Che just wanted to get rid of all of their political opponents to make sure that no one could challenge them. But Fidel and Che were very open about the fact that, like, look, man, if we hadn't done this, the people would have like broken into the jails and literally ripped them limb from limb. Like, these were some of the most hated people on the entire island, and they had well deserved that reputation. They were responsible for horrific crimes against humanity and crimes against the people. And so, yeah, we put them through a trial and then we shot them, because if we hadn't done that, the entire island would have exploded. There was so much mass trauma from what these individuals had put everyone else through that needed to be kind of purged from the zeitgeist, that we had to purge that from the national consciousness.
Yep.
And then once they did that, like, that was it. They didn't. It wasn't the precursor to, mass bloodletting. It was, okay, we've done this. Now we can move on, and they did.
Mm-hmm.
You talking about La Cabana?
I don't know what the name of it was. I just know that there were trials.
One that Che got, the Butcher of La Cabana, that nickname.
Oh, I mean, again, probably I don't know the term from the I don't know the Cuban term for it, but I know that that's what happened.
Yeah, you watch Overzealots, right? You had mentioned the lip sock that actually says nice things about you guys.
Oh yeah, Overzealots.
He's got one on Che, and he talks about La Cabana and like exactly what you're saying.
Okay, yeah.
Any other final thoughts on this section? All right. Well, thank you all for joining us, and I think we had a very good discussion.
Yeah, this was awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Have a good night, everyone.
And everybody.
Yeah, you too. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for watching this recording of our reading group, and thank you to everyone that attended. We hope you got something out of this. If you enjoyed this video and want to attend a reading group live, feel free to reach out to us via email at milwaukee@cpusa.org. DM us on any of our social media, or just come say hi at an event that we're at. This was the final chapter we discussed at this reading group. At the next reading group on Tuesday, October 14th, we will discuss Chapter 3, the question of the cooperative transformation of agriculture. Chapter 4, the question of the industrialist and the businessman. Chapter 5, the question of the intellectuals. And Chapter 6, the question of minority nationalities. Each chapter will receive its own video, with the video for Chapter 3 likely uploaded in the evening on Wednesday, October 15th. Solidarity, everyone, and see you next time.